You're listening to Data Center Therapy. Please take a number, and an engineer will be right with you. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Data Center Therapy, a podcast from Ivoxy Consulting that talks all things IT with a healthy dose of empathy. I'm your host, Matt Yeti 7.0, and alongside me is my co-host, Matt Cozzolino.
Good morning, everyone.
Each episode, we dive into the wide range of technologies that make up this beautiful sandbox called IT that we all play in. We share our hopes and dreams, opinions both positive and critical alike, all with a touch of empathy, because at the end of the day, we all need a seat on that couch. We wanted to remind you, before we dive in, about some of our marketing events, right? We've been doing Casual Fridays now, I think, for the past 2 Fridays, and it's been every Friday at 11 a.m. You can register by clicking a link on our website. You can check out our LinkedIn. We've shared, like, hey, sign up. Obviously, it's not wide open because all these stories you're hearing about Zoom and crashing, and you have to register. But it's free. So you should check it out. It's been a lot of fun up to this point. It's been interesting to see some Ivoxy engineers cut loose in a more casual setting. We've done some hat contests, some coffee mug contests, and we're donating per attendee to Bloodworks Northwest COVID response efforts. So it's for a good cause. You should join us in a few days here up on Friday at 11. Okay, today's a really special episode. One, it's highly anticipated versus based on the topic. And in my opinion, it's highly anticipated based on our special guest. For the first time joining us on the pod is Senior Consultant Shane Bradley of Ivoxy. Shane, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Matt. Thanks.
Yeah, it's good to finally have you on. It's been a little while. We've been trying to get this going and find some spot on your calendar. But it is your first time on the show, and you've been with Ivoxy for how long now?
I started June of 2019, so coming up on a year.
Nearly been a year.
Holy cow, it's already been a year. Wow.
Right, right. It will have been my work anniversary. I actually share, not the day, but the recurring day, I share with my wedding anniversary. So I will be married to Ivoxy for 7 years in about a week here. So
God, I think I'm pushing 10.
One goes by fast. Yeah, you're going up there, Matt.
So you buy your wife flowers. She buys you for what?
What do I get for the company that's giving me everything?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I haven't thought about that. Shane, tell us about yourself, both personally and professionally. How'd you get to where you are right now?
So I was outside of IT, and I did a lot of free IT work. And when it came about, there was a job there. I applied for it. They kind of told me the job was mine, and then they said, "Well, you're overqualified, so we're gonna hire somebody different." So that made me go back to school, and that kind of took me on the road I'm on now. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I don't you like that, Matt? That backhanded self. Yeah. So I'm
got a job.
I was overqualified.
It's true though. That's what they told me. So
yeah.
Well, it's good, and it's good to have you down here at Ivoxy. I mean, you've definitely drank from the fire hose over the last year. And we're glad that you're still here and eager, I guess, given all of that.
And we say down here. You moved down from Canada. You're originally Canadian, yeah?
I am, yeah. I'm
originally, not anymore.
Yeah, I'm from Calgary. I lived there pretty much my whole life, and this is my second stint in Washington. So that's kind of how I knew the Ivoxy guys and came on board with you guys. So
nice.
Excited to have you here, and it's been awesome working with you so far, Shane. And of course, happy to have you on the pod now.
Yeah, it's been awesome. What's that saying? First time guest, long time listener.
First time caller.
There you go. Yeah. Well, today is kind of a big, bold headline topic. We we mentioned it a few episodes ago, but finally we're diving in, and we're going to be talking about vSphere 7.0. It's the longest stretch of time that we've had between major releases.
Has it been? Seriously?
In recent history,
Wow.
I looked up a blog post, and this was it went GA in March. In March, is that right, Shane?
It did, yeah. March 10th, I believe, is what it was, yeah.
and that represented 24 whole months of since 6.7 dropped, and then there was some just trying to pull up my visual memory here. Between 6.7 6.5, it was something like 20 months, and then there was 18 months in there prior to that. So it's never been really rapid, which I think we can all be appreciative of. But this was a longer wait, and when it was originally slated for December, even still, that still would have represented the longest delay between major releases, and then it got pushed back further. And I think a lot of that had to do with some of the stuff container-wise that we'll be talking about here coming up. Okay, so let's dive right into it. Shane, I'm just going to throw some things out in terms of some of the headliner top level stuff, and let's go in. So you pointed out that there are updates on the web client front, or deprecations, if I may.
Absolutely, yeah. So no more Flex Client, which is good. I think we all hated it to begin with, but HTML5 is really where we're at in version 7 only.
Is it not there anymore, or is it simply deprecated, not supported, don't use this anymore?
So I got my lab updated to V7, and when you go to the admin page to log into the web client, it's HTML5 only.
There's nothing there. They don't give you that choice.
They do not give you that choice anymore.
That's cool. That's cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know. When they say all the feature parity,
Feature parity,
I always side eye that statement. For a lot of reasons, but specifically, I ran into the vSANs in 6.7 when the HTML5 client was said to be feature parity, and you could not create a brand new vSAN cluster without using the Flex client.
Same thing with NSXT or NSXV. There was only some of the buttons were available in the Flash client. So yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed that as well. I did a vSAN upgrade for a customer, and we actually even compared the HTML5 to the Flex client to see where the settings were, and they were in different spots. So for me, I just truly hope 100% of the stuff's moved over.
Yeah, I mean, let's assume that the Flex and the Flash client are actually performant and usable. They're not, right? It's not.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just assume they are. I've got customers who, even at like 6.5, 6.7, are still using the Flex client, and it's frustrating, but I understand why. Because, they did their due diligence. They jump ship. They said, you know what? This is the way I'm being told is the way, and I'm going to just be a good consumer and get on board and go through it, fight through it, suffer through it, and learn it. And now I think they're gun shy because HTML5, well, okay, and they're still using them. Like, why are you doing that? Go to HTML5. But that, to your point, Shane, now they not only have to just shift interfaces and be like, that's better. They have to relearn how to do things that they might be doing every day. And that's the mark of bad user experience design right there for sure. And hopefully it's in the rear view now with HTML5 full on. But boy, pardon my skepticism. We'll wait and see and hope and pray.
Absolutely.
What's this new VM view? I have not seen it.
Yeah, so I went into the interface, and if you only see it really if you click on the VM itself, and then go to the summary tab. On the right-hand side, there's this thing that says New View. That's what the button says, New View. And it basically just kind of retiles kind of how you see stuff for the VM and stuff. But
is it like that summary landing page for the VM, and it kind of shows you all of the important stuff about the one VM itself?
Yeah, pretty much like that. So where you'd see like your VM hardware and your DRS settings and stuff, they just basically put it into their own little widgets kind of thing. And I just found it interesting that they just called it New View.
I mean, I guess like the old summary tab. I just want to put a vote out there for, can we bring back the fat client?
No.
And
no.
Well, no.
No.
The management paradigm where you went for things seemed to make the most sense out of all. Even still, I long for the relative clarity and simplicity of how it was laid out. It could chunk up and get slow. Linked mode was a nightmare, right? But overall, can you really, outside of needing a Windows machine, right? Let's not forget that. But Could you really fault it much more than that?
I'm personally I'm a fan of anything I don't have to install on my machine.
Yeah, I mean, point for you.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think from my point, I am good with the HTML5 client, but I will give credit where I heard this at VMworld in 2014. Chris Wall called it the good client. So
it's a good client.
All right. Okay. So no major changes then. I mean, more just of less cruft to worry about, which is a good thing, right?
Stability updates.
I'm gonna
right?
jump.
Yeah.
Gonna jump around here. It's a little minor. The licensing. People, I think, are they heard that there's a change to core based, and I think the panic sets in. But then, Shane, give us a little color on that. Why it's not maybe as big a deal as you think.
Yeah. So if I had to knock anything, it's probably the licensing. The way it's situated now is one CPU license is only good for 32 cores. So just the scenario really of it is if you got a box that's got 40 cores, you now got to buy 2 licenses, which I'm not a big fan of, but I get where they're going with it. So in terms of that, VMware's really offered what they're going to call free licenses. For those folks that can prove that they got a box over 40 cores, you do have to prove that you got ownership of it. They're just not going to take you at your word. But with that, you got to apply for it, and I believe you have until January 29th of 2021 now to make the application for
grandfather
this.
thing.
So if you've got old
Yeah.
hardware, then okay.
Yeah.
But okay, so can I put out this pragmatically and why I kind of mentioned that I don't think it's as big a deal? On the one hand, right, you have the potential for the VRAM entitlement fiasco from like 2012 or something.
Forever ago.
That's
right.
where-
It's like, hey, isn't virtualization wonderful? You can consolidate your workloads. Oh, you can only license up to 96 gigs of RAM on a server. Ooh.
Yeah.
How many of your customers, and I'm not saying there aren't out there, and there's plenty, right? But I would say the vast majority of my customers have less than 32 cores per CPU. Now, you go in one direction with that, right?
Right.
Cores are getting
Still not.
denser.
Yep.
But, right now I've got a ton of customers in that 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 range that probably covers 98% of the people that I talk to in terms of that's that value mode for the CPUs.
Does it count? What does it count? HA or hyperthreading? I mean.
No,
I don't think so.
No,
just
hyper.
physical
No.
cores. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see. I mean, I feel like the limit is so relatively high. Back when they threw VRAM entitlement in at 96 gigs, that was not a large number. That was a small business will hit this number easily on a single VM host, right? Where I would say there's plenty of people who are going to come in under 32, and they're just kind of chumming the waters right now. And then 3 years from now, when
It's been around for 4
core
years. Yeah.
CPUs and 32 is the basement, yeah, we'll see what happens then. Should be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. The other part of licensing that probably I don't want to say it scares me more, but probably needs a bit more attention is probably on the Kubernetes side. Because I did look into it, and you do need the add-on for Kubernetes license. You do need an NSXT license, and you also need a vSAN license. Now, I did check with VMware, and they say you can buy what they're really calling the VMware Cloud Foundations 4 stack, which is what you need. You can get it with and without vSAN, but
Okay.
so
We're going to be diving into the vCloud Foundation in a very soon future episode, because it's one of those points of confusion. I think that, hey, what is vCloud Foundation? Is that the same as these vCloud suites? Is it, given VMware's penchant and a lot of companies to remarket and rechange and rebadge all of their products and consolidate and group and suite them together? VCF is one that's ripe for a breakdown, I think. So I'm glad you touched on that, Shane. You're right. With the Kubernetes, seems to be one of the headlining features of the 7.0, and then to have that muddied is kind of confusing. Like, does it come with it then? Is it, how can I actually obtain this?
yeah,
Okay.
like I look at it. Sorry to interrupt. I look at it from that point of view that, Kubernetes, I think a lot of people are going to want to take advantage of it, but when you look at the whole licensing model, the add-on license, the NSXT, etc., It's probably going to be for the bigger clients out of the gate, right?
It's yet another barrier to entry to just using containers.
It could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's almost the necessary evil, I guess you could say, in that. Go ahead and roll your own, Matt.
Right.
You're welcome
It's
to.
it's the management plane, right? Yeah.
This is the supported. Yeah, this is the supported way to do it. And admittedly, large company, couple of speed bumps, trips over the curb, a couple along the way, and false starts, and this and that. We saw NetApp completely shift with their NetApp Kubernetes service, and now they've come out with another product that basically replaces that. You're gonna, even though there's a lot of momentum behind containers, it's still relatively early in its life cycle. Even though containers have been around a long time, you're just seeing the uptake, and so a lot of room for change and volatility right now.
Yeah.
And I think we're starting to see where these larger companies are going to land and dedicate themselves to now.
There's, I think, a lot of stuff that goes into like R&D with that. Like, you got to have something to try it to see if it's going to work, right? To the NetApp point, you have to build that, you have to present it, you have to use it and get it out there and working to figure out that, hey, you know what, this isn't going to work. You got to be able to fail like that to some extent.
But reading about this release, Shane, it seems like there's also a bit of again, we know that vSphere from a hypervisor standpoint is fairly mature. We're not seeing super groundbreaking leaps in terms of what virtualization does. But it seems like there's polish around the management of it. It seems where a lot of the focus is, and so you see their vRealize suite is getting an awful lot of attention. But one piece of this new 7.0 is the lifecycle manager. Now, I have 8.0 installed in my home lab for things like vRealize automation and orchestrator and things like that. But this seems like this is actually bringing this into the vSphere stack when it comes to hypervisors and vCenters and update managers.
Yeah, I think from their perspective, they want to try and get all the hosts on the same image compliance. They want to kind of make sure that when you go to do your updates, the addition of obviously the update planner is going to go out to the internet and check to make sure that versions are going to be compatible with each other and so on and so forth. That way to kind of make it so you don't get halfway through your upgrades now and you hit an error and it's like, dang.
Did they name this VI Voxy? Because it sounds a lot like what we've helped our customers with prior to upgrades and prepping and planning and executing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good thing. It appears to be they've had little toes in the water along the way. Like you said, host profiles. They've got a compliance, a vSphere upgrade manager image profiles that you then attach for baseline and compliance. And it seems to me like this is a concerted getting their arms around it into a single platform that will then kind of orchestrate that for you.
Truly, yeah, I think that's exactly what they're doing. Outside of Kubernetes, I would think Lifecycle Manager is probably one of their next big announcements coming out of vSphere 7. Really.
Is then the update manager portion of it and all of that portion missing? Is that gone now and it's fully replaced by this, or does it work in conjunction with?
Kind of works in conjunction with both. Yeah, when you go into the interface, it's Lifecycle Manager, but it still has the same look and feel of Update Manager, and you still patch the same way you did with Update Manager and that kind of thing.
Some new lipstick for it then.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
I heard a rumor that if I want to jump on board with this Lifecycle Manager, I need to join the Customer Experience Improvement Program. We've all seen the checkbox. We've all unchecked it.
Yes, you do. There was a couple things that I looked at. So you got to join the Customer Experience Improvement Program. The reason for that is because you need internet access to go out and check for all the other versions that are going to interface with the Lifecycle Manager and the
That's
update
a fine
planner.
corporate answer, Mr. Bradley. Yeah,
it needs
there's
to
no other way
function.
to check internet access than joining the CEIP.
Yeah.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah. There's a couple other things you should probably be aware of too. You have to be on vSphere 7 or higher to use the update planner. It doesn't work to help you bring your 6.0 6X systems.
No,
up
this
to
is going
7.
forward. Then I
Yeah.
can't. This
Okay.
is okay. I
So once
can't
we
get
get
to
to
7 with
7,
this.
yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, you gotta do the upgrade to 7 to actually use the update planner in future versions.
So we can't actually see it work yet because we don't have anything past 7 to go to.
That, that, that is correct. I was thinking the same thing, Matt, when I was going through some of the stuff. And, VMware has a little bit of a demo on a couple of their blog sites that they can show you the update planner, but I'm pretty sure behind the scenes they've probably tricked their own little
They
code.
just got a dummy image build number.
Absolutely. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Oh,
Huh.
fun.
Yeah.
And then there's something called a declarative image, but I'm not sure if this almost sounds like a host profile type feature that is extremely rigid and meant for a very standards-based environment. Is that right?
I would agree with you there in terms of, I think that's what they're looking at. Really, it's to be the image you want to be at, not the image you want to be on, right? So that's kind of where you're doing it. You're defining it that way. There are a couple real big caveats I see at this point in terms of that. So all hosts within the cluster have to be on the same vendor hardware. Ideally, they want the same make and model of hardware within the cluster. You can't run stateless. And for somebody like Mr. Cozzolino here that runs NSX, it's not supported in this initial release. So this comes back to the whole, are we at 100% feature parity so far? Because let's say Matt wants to use Kubernetes and he wants to use, the declarative image in the lifecycle manager. He doesn't get to do both of those things at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
It
So
sounds
it's
like
new.
anyway. Yeah.
It's got to be new.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, Kazo, you'll like this. It appears that more and more our paradigm for interacting with IT systems is not, I have to do this thing to get here, but it's more defining, I want to be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's what that sounds like when you said that,
Declarative, right?
That first weird sentence you had, Shane, where you're like, it's not the image that you want to be, it's the image you want to declare that we should be at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been doing a lot with that. Matt helped me through my first Ansible.
Right.
Experience.
This needs to be installed. This needs to be here. This needs to be configured. Figure it out. Make it happen.
Quick side note: we talked last episode about home automation, and I had the room automation room assistant.
How many of those little pies do you have?
I have 7 of them. I've deployed 5 of them.
So Yeti asks me, how do I SSH into all of these at once? I'm like, well, Ansible.
Yeah, it was. Not only would I need to SSH into it, but because it's based on Debian, I then have to sudo and it's just so obnoxious. Just let me ruin my machine if I want to, if I want to make a mistake in rmrf/. But I'm like, I'm going in, I'm tweaking just one at a time, and I want to look at just one of their logs, and I have to drop into 2 or 3 or 4 of them, and Ansible was the answer, and they already had a playbook for it.
Mm-hmm.
And was able to basically, if I want to tweak,
are you doing
the minimum?
Are you
the minimum signal?
Yeah. Are you doing SSH key authentication?
Not key. I'm doing UP, user password.
Dude, SSH key is a whole different world, a whole new world. It's wonderful.
Well, I do that with all of my VMs. In my environment, is what I do is SSH copy ID.
Mm-hmm.
And then the root at whatever, or my username at whatever, and it just asks my password once, and then it copies my public key basically to the box itself, and then I just log in. It doesn't prompt me for anything. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, you copy the public key, your local public key, to the known hosts file on your destination PC.
The server gets it though too.
No, you have a different one on the server, right? When you SSH into a box for the very first time ever, it says, do you trust this SSH key? And you hit yes.
Yep.
That's taking that server that you're connecting to, its public key, and adding it to your local machine.
But then the server itself also gets my public key.
Right.
Yes. Yep.
Sounds like a future episode.
For sure. Okay, getting back on track here. There's a lot to go through.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to throw in there that struck me as interesting, and it seems like it's one of those little features that is there and might not get the fanfare, but it might be a worthy addition going forward, is Virtual Watchdog. So it's actually a virtual hardware device. So you edit the settings on the VM, add hardware, and it presents itself as a function of BIOS or EFI. And all modern operating systems support it on the Windows side. Mac OS does not. I don't believe Linux does as well. But it allows you to, you can then configure it in the guest OS, but it monitors the health or the operational state of the OS and or applications, and you can configure that. So if an app locks up, you can have it kick the VM. So, I mean, or the OS locks up. Let's say the OS locks up and it doesn't necessarily chew on CPU and show you 100% alarm or whatever. You might never know that something's not quite right. Or let's say your network monitoring only pings and you're still getting a response on the network side of things. So this gives you another avenue for monitoring. It's interesting the paradigm it's using is that virtual hardware device, but it's something I'm going to look more into. I'm to the point now where I call it my home lab. I can't throw 7.0 on this at my house.
It's production ready, right?
I've got people depending on this. Yeah. And what if my lights don't turn on at 7 in the evening?
That's a travesty.
Yeah.
No, you can't do it. You got to be careful. So
It's called the light switch,
sorry.
Matt.
More hardware. I have to test. I have to lab out. Didn't you just buy lab hardware? Well, about that.
Prod lab.
Okay, a couple other
Yeah,
things that have been with us in vSphere for, well, you can't quite say decades, but we're almost to that plural. Certainly more than 10 years is vMotion and DRS. So vMo's got a little, I mean, a lot of these improvements, maximum vCPU and memory, they can only do so many improvements, right? Most improvements are incremental. So vMotion is one of those things that, yeah, multiple VMK ports, this and that. Let's take advantage of balancing that traffic, encrypting it. But we've got improvements in this version, right, Shane?
We do, yeah. So I would say this is probably the third big thing coming out of vSphere 7 release is the vMotion enhancements. They really did a full under the covers kind of redo of kind of how they're doing the vMotion essentially. So they used to be on cluster-centric vMotioning, and they're really moving to workload-centric vMotioning now. So basically kind of how it works is, they had to stop the page trace before to kind of move the dirty pages and all that kind of stuff over. And now they're kind of moving to a loose page trace type install to move all that over. One of the big things that I saw from, the research I've done so far is, let's say you had a box that had 4 vCPUs. In the old method, they kind of had to stun all 4 of them to kind of do that. Now,
that is a 4-letter dirty word in our industry, the VM stun.
Yeah.
Stun everything.
Yeah. So now they're trying to just basically dedicate one of those vCPUs to kind of doing the page transfers and that type of thing. And then the other vCPUs will kind of do their transfers at various times, not all at the same time. So they're really trying to make it so they can.
So because only one CPU is talking to a single section of memory at a time, it's now we don't have to move all of our CPUs and all of our memory at once. We can step one CPU and the memory associated with it at a time.
Yeah, that's what it's pretty much sounding like. Yeah.
Oh.
They've made
in the time it takes to say, everybody hold up, I have to move these CPUs over, is a lot greater than the time it takes to say that about a single CPU.
Right, because everyone has to be on the same page.
The CPU can only access memory on itself and not.
You have to go. You have to. My understanding is each core has to go across the North Bridge or whatever to talk to the other core to ask for the memory that's in that other one. So because you're crossing
really
that boundary,
smart people working on it.
Someone
obviously.
other than me, yeah.
But I mean, if they can reduce stun, that's a major improvement. I mean, that everybody's pain point.
Mm-hmm.
There are backup partners, backup solutions. Rubrik is they ingest into Flash, which helps the stun because they can pull data quicker and not leave an outstanding snapshot out there. if VMware is able to say, oh, we're also quicker about removing snapshots because of that, and that extends to vMotion, that's something everybody's going to be able to take advantage of.
Do you think, is that same stun process for vMotion the same stun process that happens for disk I/O? Because I feel like those are two different things.
They are, but I believe we're talking about the same thing conceptually in terms of how the VM reacts.
Okay.
You still have to, at one point, say, everybody hold on, I need everything to be consistent for at least a second or whatever. And I think from a VM responsiveness standpoint, disk I/O is less critical than CPU and memory because I/O can always hold up, stack up, and I/O, you could, like with NFS, what's timeout, like 90 seconds? You could drop your volume, and if the VM's
long enough for me to go, oh crap, yeah.
If it's not write or read intensive, it'll just sit there and keep on chugging along. Yeah. And then there's DRS, right, Shane? I mean, this is something that I think a lot of people have always looked at as kind of the black box. It's working, I guess. It says it's okay. But wait a minute, why?
It says I'm balanced.
It
says I'm unbalanced.
Yeah.
That host is not balanced.
Yeah.
But it says it's happy. What's up with this?
Yeah, so previous, DRS would run every 5 minutes kind of thing. And in the new version, they're running it every minute. There's a ton of metrics that are kind of being brought into kind of how they're going to do the DRS thing. In terms of, again, workload-centric, they want the VM to be happy. They don't want the cluster to overly be happy from that perspective. So it's supposed to definitely add performance to us in terms of, the cluster is going to be balanced, but the workload, i.e. VMs, are going to be much happier to move around and that type of thing. So
I think one of the main points of misunderstanding with DRS when it's balanced is people would take a host out of maintenance mode and say, why is this thing not vMotioning to make sure each host has the identical amount of consumed CPU and RAM? That's what people wanted or expected to see, I think, from DRS. And really, from when you say cluster health standpoint, vSphere was looking at it like, do I have the available resources to survive a failure in any one of my hosts? And if that answer is yes, then don't worry about it. I get that. At the same time, from an operator standpoint, I still look at it and say, well, it's better if I only have to reboot 8 VMs instead of 26 VMs on an overloaded, quote-unquote, over-provisioned host. So I think when you get more granular, worry about workloads, and get a more granular update every 1 minute versus every 5 it's a massive improvement in terms of the fidelity and the increase in intervals on that. I think we're going to get better averaged out data.
Do you see?
Yeah.
Have you done anything with Ops Manager and 7.0 yet? Because some of that sounds like something that might be kind of bolted on or come along with, or stolen from even Ops Manager with the predictive DRS, with the right sizing tools and that kind of stuff. Do you see any of that kind of integration coming from DRS or from Ops Manager and being part of now?
I honestly can't answer that because I haven't looked into both products kind of coming together from that perspective with vSphere 7 and this change in particular. The one thing I would like to really look at a little bit more is, what did your environment look like before and after the DRS shift in terms of how the VM score and how the cluster score was? That's going to be interesting to kind of see, and you're going to need some good workload to kind of test that out. So
and DRS is one of those things that it's a not zero cost to it also, because let's even assume that you've got dedicated 10 or 40 gig links for your vMotion traffic. So let's assume that your converged network is not affected by any particular vMotion operation or operations. You've still got the aforementioned stun issue. You don't want to be willy-nilly migrating VMs around from host to host constantly. So the idea that you're updating every minute now, yeah, you can certainly be more proactive, but there's that balance in that the 1 through 5 slider that we've all set in terms. Some people just whack it right to 5, be the most aggressive, and now you see, why did I have 268 vMotion operations today? And and consequently, why are my customers complaining about some slowdowns here. There's a balance, right? You want to be effective, but you don't want to be overly proactive too, and therefore the cure worsens the disease kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we all know about that right now. Anyway, you can tell when we're recording this episode.
Yeah.
As we're all locked
Day
in.
473 of Stay at Home.
Yeah.
All right. Shane, it has been awesome having you on, and we can keep going. I just need to, we need to keep this reasonably short so people don't tune out on us and Cosolino's voice. I know they can only take so much.
Drone.
Did you have anything did you want to add before we wrapped up, Shane?
No, I think I'm good. We covered kind of the big points, I think, coming out of the release. And obviously there's more, don't get us wrong. But like you said, we got to kind of keep it short. And you never know, we might have a V7 episode 2.
Yeah, it's one of those things that definitely reach out to us or your account manager, whoever you might want to chat with at iVoxy about it, because there's a lot of collective experience with all technologies. And while our mantra is to accelerate the understanding and adoption of innovative data center technologies, that's what we do. But a big part of that is the understanding of it as well. So, adoption without understanding, you're just setting yourself up for trouble, right?
Yeah.
So it's a measured approach to say, let's take a look at what your needs are, what the state you want to be at is, right, Matt?
Mm-hmm. There's something to be said about this is a cool shiny thing versus, hey, I need to solve this problem.
Right. And especially, and I look at it from a network standpoint, like a network switch firmware. Update it if there's a security hole or a bug that you're running up against.
Or a
Outside
feature
of that,
you need, yeah.
Leave it alone kind of thing. And it's not to that extreme, but definitely some caution should be taken. It's running your entire infrastructure under the covers. If you're eager, hot to trot, you upgrade right away, you run into a bug, that's a whole lot of pain that you necessarily did not need to go through. So let's chat about it. We can talk about vSphere 7, what's coming down the pipe, what features, how they might line up for you, and it'll be a good conversation. Don't forget about Casual Friday this Friday. I've been told and informed that the link is in the show notes within your favorite podcast app, and also on our website. That's either ivoxy.com or datacentertherapy.com. That works too, which is really cool. 5-star reviews. 5-star reviews. They're giving them out like candy, and it's Halloween. We want candy.
Everyone wants candy.
It's not Halloween either.
I got to give a 6-star review just because I was on the show today.
There you go.
You got to average them out. Nope, that would be good. 6 stars for Shane.
4-star next week, yeah.
That's the Canadian charts use a 6-star scale. You know this, right?
Sure,
Matt.
I'll go with that.
Thanks again for listening to Data Center Therapy, everybody. For my co-host Matt and our guest Shane, thanks so much for listening. We hope you have a great day.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.